Thank you, everybody. Over to you, Pallavi ji and Nitin ji.
Thank you, Prakash ji. Thank you, Sunil ji, for such an awesome, wonderful session. Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening to all of you. Welcome to Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita session. Radhe Radhe, Nitin ji, over to you.
Thank you, Pallavi ji. Thank you, Prakash ji, for a wonderful session. Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. Very warm welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we will get underway. Okay, you need to give me co-host privileges so that I can...
Yes.
Have I been given? All right, yeah, looks good now. Give me a sec. Are you able to see my screen? Okay, so we'll get started. So today we will have, we will conclude our shloka discussion that we are doing, and then we have the cash up segment where we are going to talk about the principles of surrender today. So let me get started with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening. Very warm welcome again. So we will recite the shloka. Like I said, we will conclude the discussion, followed by in-depth discussion on the principles of surrender today. Now recite it, we'll pick up 3 hands and then we'll get started. Jnanena tu tad jnanam yesham nashitam atmanah tesham adityavajnanam prakashyati tatparam. Let's take 3 hands.
Yes, Radhe Radhe Shyamji, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Jnanena tu tad jnanam yesham nashitmatmanam tesham aditya vajnanam prakashyati tatparam. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you.
Aparna ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Jnanena tu tad ajnanam yesham nashitamatmanah tesham adityavajnanam prakashayati tatparam. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take one more hand.
Yeah, Rupa ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Rupa ji.
Radhe Radhe everyone. Jnanena tu ajnanam yesham nishitamatatmanam tesham adityavajnanam prakashayati tatparam.
Okay, so let's get started. We have a lot of content to cover. So I will get started. Pragi ji, Riya ji, will take you tomorrow.
Yes.
Let's get started. In this, Lord Krishna is saying that for those whose ignorance is destroyed by divine knowledge, the supreme entity is revealed, just as the sun illumines everything when it rises. So yesterday, we spoke about how do we get true knowledge. Right? We are talking about the divine knowledge, and we said that no matter how much material knowledge you acquire, it is still not true knowledge because it does not take us to the absolute truth. And even if you acquire knowledge in a particular subject or an expertise in a particular area, certifications, whatever the case may be, unless it takes you to the absolute truth, it is still not perfect knowledge. And even on the path of God realization, even if you're 99.9% there, until you get that perfect knowledge, It's not true knowledge because you're still missing something. Right? And Maya, being Maya, deen souls under the sway of Maya, Jiva Shakti, as we spoke yesterday, the Tatastha Shakti, the marginal power of God, and it is under the sway of Maya, which is his inferior energy. And only when we get grace of God do we get the divine knowledge. And we said that from a practice standpoint, even if you add a lot of gyan, multiple lifetimes of practice of gyan, jap, tap, all that stuff would count. I mean, it could get reduced to a mechanical drill unless it is supplemented with the key ingredient, which is the one before all the zeros, which is the bhakti devotion, because that enables us to get the grace. And through grace only, the knowledge becomes wisdom or the realized knowledge. Gyan becomes vigyan, and the knowledge becomes realization. Otherwise, it's a mere information, right? And this is corroborated further in the shloka. Towards the end, Arjun says, Tvat prasadatan, Tvat prasadan. So that means by your grace. Arjun is not saying by my intellectual ability or my intellectual prowess or by my self-effort, I have now come to know about all the things that you have told me. With your grace, he said, now I have understood and my ignorance is dispelled. So in order to draw grace, we have to do devotion. And when we do devotion, we'll talk about, we get closer to the concept of surrender, and that's what we are going to talk about more in our next segment. So now let's get started. So here is a guy, he's very concerned about his future. Okay. Very concerned about his future. Does he have a bright future or a dull, dim future? Like a lot of us are there, right? We go to people who look at horoscopes, or we go to tarot card readers and stuff like that. So this guy is also having those anxieties, and he thought, let me go to somebody who reads tarot cards. Okay, so he finds a lady. As you can see, she's a pretty expert in reading the tarot cards. Apparently, this today, I mean, she's not going to go for the tarot card. She has a better solution. Okay, she's got a miracle tortoise. Miracle tortoise. You see this tortoise? She has a miracle tortoise, and she said, you know what? I'm going to say something to the tortoise in his ear, and then the tortoise will start walking. And I'm going to put two spots here. Okay, if he goes to the green, you have a bright future. And if he goes to the red spot, you have a dull future. It's your future is not, will not look, it's going to be a very bleak future that you have. So then the process, the ceremony starts. Okay, and the tortoise starts walking. Now, when it starts walking, it sees that it starts walking towards the red spot. Now, what does the guy do? Its future is bleak now. That was the deal, right? Because he had reposed faith in the words of this lady, and he starts walking towards the red spot until the boy looks at the tortoise. Okay, this is where he was starting. He's not yet reached it. Okay, he looks at the tortoise and simply moves it to the other direction. Okay, he lifts it up and puts it on the green spot. So lady says, what are you doing? He said, you think I'm going to let this tortoise spoil my future? I will not. It takes it and puts it on the green spot. So the point here is, rather than becoming fatalist or looking for the destiny, we need to take control of our stuff. And this thing gets extended to a lot of other stuff as well, where we give a lot of importance to these kind of things, right? Tarot card readers, horoscope and stuff like that. They do have an influence, but not to an extent where we are at the mercy of these elements completely. That goes to the Vastu thing as well, the direction, south facing, north facing. When I came to Dallas, there's a huge push on. I said, all right, give me a south facing house. I will pay less, 25, 30K less. And people were happy to give me that. And they still look at me with wonder, what kind of people are these if they've taken a south facing house. And some people who could not get a south facing house, they've taken a south facing house, but they have figured a back door. Back door means they're going to enter through a north entrance, because this thing is deeply embedded in their mind. Something bad, inauspicious would happen if that happens. Okay. So these things do not have so much of play. These are marginal things. Right. Even Guru Nanak Dev's story is there, right? When he was lying down and he was facing his feet towards Makkah, Medina. And somebody told him, right, that don't face this side because it is pointing to a holy place, Makkah, Medina. So he said, all right, in that case, move my feet to a direction where there is no God. And they took his feet and moved it, and Makkah, Medina moved alongside with it. So if we are on the path of devotion, we don't give too much of importance to all of these things. Okay, these becomes insignificant. We already don't have time for devotion. On top of it, if we start adding this baggage, going for numerology, the anguthis and the name and changing name, in the devotion path, all these things don't matter. When we go to Raganuga Bhakti, boss, the God becomes your Siddhi in that case, okay? And that is the best bet, right? That story of Namdev and another person who was walking, who's a Siddha Purush. They were walking and they went to the well, and he said, okay, you don't even have a Siddhi, how to drink water from this well? And he just got in, became very small, drank the water and came out. And Amdev said, no, I'm not going to use Siddhi. But what happens? The water starts filling up and comes all the way to him. So when we don't get into these things and focus only on devotion, God becomes your Siddhi. And that's a better way rather than getting hung up into that. Otherwise, rest of the life we'll spend going to different totkas and all. Okay, give me this anguti, give me this number, change my number, numerology, horoscope, tarot card readers. I think it's a waste of time, complete waste of time. Okay, so and then it takes your mind space, and then you are losing precious time to do devotion and build sanskars that are truly helpful. It's not a sustainable game plan anyways to get hung up on that. And then the doubts, those doubts will cripple you even further psychologically, mentally, and then you will lose precious time, build sanskars that will instill fear in you, right? And not faith and surrender on God. So it will take you further away from faith and surrender and look for hacks in life. Changing names, if you can change your destiny, I mean, you really think so that happens? Let's not get too enamored, infatuated with these things. There are tons of things that happen like this, right? So let's focus on the real deal, which is devotion. If we have time, I would rather, recommendation is focus on how do we deepen faith for God. If we have extra time, let's hear God's leelas. It'll at least cleanse our antakaran and give us benefits that will have far better ramifications than any of this practice here. Okay. So with that said, let's move on. I see a little Krishna. Okay, some animation thing happened, but never mind. So this is our body consciousness. And this is the witness consciousness, right? Where we spoke about. Now, from body consciousness means we simply play to the tunes of what our body senses, mind is telling us, right? For us to get to the witness consciousness, of course, we need some kind of a synapses or a bridge. So then you have to dissociate with mind. That is the bridge. Bridge from Gyan to Atma Gyan, right? So that is that can happen only when we dissociate ourselves with our body and mind. That is not me. I am something much more deeper and subtler than that. So that contemplation, of course, coupled with spiritual practice, takes us from Gyan to Atma Gyan. Now, this can happen through contemplation as well. Socrates is believed to have attained because he was once found consoling one of his friends who had lost his wife. So it is believed that this philosopher of our modern times, he was situated in Atmagyan, that I am spirit, soul, not something, body or this mind complex that we normally associate ourselves with. But then this Atmagyan you can do through your contemplation and your self-effort. However, for you to get from Atmagyan to Brahmagyan is less than Brahmagyan. Okay, in Gyan Marg, they will say Atmagyan equal to Brahmagyan. Actually, Atmagyan is not equal to Brahmagyan. It is less than Brahmagyan. So for you to go from Atmagyan to Paramatmagyan, which is Brahmagyan, again, you need a bridge. Okay, that cannot happen through just your self-efforts or the contemplation. Like big darshanics or philosophers, they've been pondering upon this question, who we truly are. Are we the sum equal of all the chemicals which reside in our body, which gives rise to the consciousness and this mechanism that we operate with? And they have come to, at least to this conclusion that we are much more subtler, okay, different than this mind-body complex. So that is something you can reach that stage of self-realization or Atmagyan through contemplation or through your self-effort and of course coupled with some spiritual practice. But then for you to go from Atmagyan to Paramatmagyan, again you need a bridge, and that bridge is Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is where you continue to operate with detachment, and then true knowledge starts awakening in your heart. Like we saw, the more you do that Karma Yoga, where we are building that consciousness that everything that I do, I'm not the doer, and the results are for the God. I need to focus on the process part of it, and then I cannot put in efforts and endeavors and with a motive of enjoying the fruits of it, right? So that practice itself will, and then everything is for the pleasure of God only. So when we do that, that will automatically take us closer to the realization that I'm not this body but this soul. So Atmagyan will happen. But then the more important thing that will happen is, in addition to Atmagyan, your relationship with Supreme Lord, that I am his eternal servant, right? And then he's my true friend and he's my well-wisher, that will also get established. That because the soul, the true nature of soul will start manifesting when we do anything and everything with the spirit that it is not for my enjoyment, but for the pleasure of God. So Karma Yoga is the build, is the bridge to progress from Atmagyan towards Paramatma Gyan or the Brahma Gyan. Now, so when we are in darkness, we use a flashlight to light up the way we see so that we can move forward, right? We've seen that with a flashlight, we can see only a little bit, as you can see. But when the sun rises, everything becomes illuminated. And that is the journey from ignorance towards light or awakening or enlightenment, right? So similarly, we need a flashlight to show us the way on the path of sadhan bhakti using divine knowledge. And we can only see few things ahead because not all the answers would be revealed or answered immediately. And then we keep on taking incremental progress until the illusion completely swept away. And that's how the knowledge will keep on getting revealed and manifesting from within itself by God's grace. And then this, the things that are around, they will reveal themselves the way they are, not as they are seeming right now. So moving on, so it's like this. This is a journey we are going to talk about. So if we are in a doubtful mode, right? Doubtful mode means we are now, if we have to, let's say, go from one place to our home, and doubtful mode is like coming across a red signal, right? When we see the traffic light, there's one of those days, right? When you drive to office, some days you will just come across all the red signals, and there are days when you see all the green signals, right? But the point here is that doubtful mode is like always, you are not even progressing because you are seeing red signal in front, right? And that's not how we typically operate, right? If we have to go from point A to point B, we don't wait for all the signals to turn green before we start making progress. And same thing happens on the path of spirituality as well. Even if little bit piece of knowledge has made sense, or something is making sense, of there is a spark for us to inquire or to understand the deeper secrets in life, or something that intrigues us, it's important to take that first step and latch onto that inspiration, as opposed to waiting for that perfect situation to happen where all the questions and all the answers are revealed to you before you take the first step, right? So it's a little bit like so it's like from doubt to doubt to doubt. There will be people who will move from one doubt to another doubt to another doubt. I have this doubt. That is fine. But if a little bit of knowledge has made sense, let's latch on to that and try to implement that and take benefit from it until the next aspect of knowledge is revealed, as opposed to getting stuck the very first doubt that you get. And once that doubt is cleared, another doubt, and then you're stuck and continue to wait for several years. That's not the way on the path of spirituality. Instead, you move like this, like moving or walking in the middle of a night with a lantern. Not everything would be revealed to you, even if you, let's say, you have a 2 mile journey towards your home. Then you look at the next 20 steps that get revealed, and then after those 20 steps, the next 20 steps, understanding to understanding to understanding. This is how the journey is supposed to manifest on the path of spirituality. So from that sense, a journey from understanding to understanding towards surrender. Finally, it should lead us to surrender, because the knowledge, as we get more knowledge, it it leads us to devotion. So knowledge leads us to devotion. And then as we get more devotion, more knowledge is revealed. And as we get more knowledge, more devotion comes, more devotion, more knowledge. So they becomes mutually reinforcing until there comes a point where knowledge peaks. No more knowledge is needed. Okay. At that point, the devotion, what happens to devotion? Devotion grows wings and it continues to fly, because in knowledge there is a Purnima, right? Like a full moon happens. But when it comes to devotion, there is no full moon. It just keeps on increasing and increasing and increasing, because bhakti is something which is also called, the Dai Bhak of a Jivatma. Dai Bhak means a true inheritance. It's like a child is inherited, is what you call that? It inherits property from its father, right? They can stake a claim for that. Similarly, our spiritual father, which is God, is willing to give our true inheritance, bhakti, to us, provided we practice devotion. And then that inheritance is something which is unlimited. He doesn't say that, okay, that's all I can offer you. It just keeps on increasing. So then knowledge peaks and then bhakti continues forever. And there's no limit in bhakti at all. And then the process culminates when we surrender, and even after that, God realization, it continues. It's not like after God realization you have peaked in bhakti and there's nothing more to attain or achieve or to experience. It just keeps on becoming fresher, newer, and infinitely increasing even after that. So this is how the process goes. So the key message from today's session was that this is a journey from understanding to understanding, as opposed to from doubt to doubt. And there'll be people who will come, okay, they'll come up with questions like, okay, tell me, who was Angad's son's brother's sister-in-law? Can you tell me that name from Ramayana? Okay, fine. We'll get that name for you, but what's going to happen after you get that name? Or we come up with questions where if you get an answer, the bigger question is that, okay, if you get an answer, are we going to break all the records in bhakti or devotion? If the answer is yes, sure, go for those answers. And there would be some questions that may not get answered immediately. We need to really streamline our questions from a standpoint that what truly helps us in devotion. Is it really going to help me proceed further, or is it more of an intellectual gymnastics or amusement that we are looking at, right? So from that sense, this is a journey where we go from understanding to understanding to understanding, as opposed to getting stuck from one doubt to another doubt to another doubt. And that is how it's supposed to unfold. So, when I started on this path, I used to wonder that, there's such a complex topic and so many things and theories and concepts are also so esoteric. And even if I keep on asking these questions for the rest of my life, I'll still not be able to exhaust the question. I was just such a mess in my head. So many questions were there. And then, anyways, but I was fortunate to meet Swamiji. And I would keep on asking questions one after another, and he will smilingly, patiently keep on answering until I realized that, after a few months, there absolutely nothing. Mind was cleared. There's nothing more to ask, because he had given this tip. He said, okay, don't lose any. It's like whatever little knowledge you are trying to understand, try to, contemplate on that. And then in due course of time, answers will keep on getting revealed. And I said, how can that happen? But it truly happened until it came to a point. Now you just know what needs to be done. Now, there may be a lack on effort on your part to do that stuff, but then you cannot say that, the theory aspect, the questions never got clarified. It never happened. And there would be some questions which truly don't add much value from a devotional standpoint, which would probably get revealed in due course of time. And maybe possibly, some of the questions would get answered when you become God realized, but they are very far and few. Those are not the deal breakers that would stop you from progressing on this path. As it stands, as the situation demands right now. So with that said, I'll take a quick pause, maybe 5 minutes of discussion. Anybody has any question on related to this? They want to share something or ask something related to their journey, or something that as an impediment that they have experienced on this path that they would like to get clarified, because there are doubts. Doubts will keep on coming. So maybe we can have a quick discussion on this before I want to give full 30 minutes for the next segment, because it's going to be a fascinating segment on the principles of surrender today. Yes, Sandhya, go ahead.
Yes, Sandhya ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
So
Fatima ji?
just like an experience which really helps me understanding this concept, um, like to somewhat deeper extent. It's very similar to what we see on the top, that lady walking with the lantern. Like when we are driving in the night, of course we don't know, right, what's far ahead at the end of the road. But with our upper dipper lights, we can see
Yep.
it's a little distance, and that's enough. And then we move further, and similarly we keep on going. So that really helps putting this also into perspective whenever I get into the stress, what's uncertain future and stuff. So then we can,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good analogy. When we are driving in the night, yeah, that's all. In fact, lower beam, higher beam is not even recommended, right? It can put glare on others' faces. Good one. Yes. Pallavi, you wanted to say something? So there were two questions.
Yeah, totally agree with what Sandhya ji mentioned, Nitin ji. Excellent session going on. Yeah, but there are sometimes when we come across people who doubt everything, unfortunately, and then they create doubt, and they are trying to sow doubts in our head also. That, do you believe in this? Is it true? Is it possible? This kind of questions people try to deviate also. And that time we have to make sure, no, we are in the path of faith. What do you have some inputs on that?
Yeah, I mean, those questions would come, right? Like people will say, do you really believe Krishna is God and stuff like that? So you can just smile and say, yes, we do, right? And then why don't you explore it a little bit on your own? And then Krishna is smart enough to, start making that belief stronger over time, because he's waiting for that moment to happen. And it just happens. Like I was talking about, things. There were so many questions like asking, and sometimes I would just have an example coming in my head, which I was pretty sure I haven't heard. But I would hear Swamiji say that in one of the lectures later on. I said, okay, now something started clicking. So answers will start getting revealed, and they will start getting revealed in a manner where you don't need an evidence. What is faith? Faith or belief is something where you don't need an empirical evidence for something. You just know it's right? Because it somehow becomes realization from within. And that starts happening, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you would have experienced it as well. And
Yes.
this is how the journey starts unfolding. Maybe one more hand we can take. Tejas, go ahead, and then Abhinav real quick, and then we'll hand it over to Kash for the next segment. Yeah, Tejas, go
Yes.
ahead.
Tejas ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yeah. Radhe Radhe. So the other thing is also when you're in this path of spirituality, right? Like you are not equipped with all the knowledge in the first go, right? It's something that you need to develop, and your mental capacity is not there to understand everything. Once you go through the path, and once you build that muscle, right? Exercise that muscle. That's when things start opening up.
Yes.
So that first dubki is the one that matters the most, and then
First
after
step.
that,
Yes.
yeah, first step, yeah.
First step, yes. And God says you take one step, I'm going to take 597 or 67 something.
Steps.
What is Yeah, that's very true. Real quick, Abhinav, or otherwise we can wait for the remaining hands after the surrender, because I'm sure a lot of questions are going to come up in that session as well. Abhinav, real quick, you wanted to say something?
Radhe
Radhe
Radhe.
Radhe. Yeah, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, everyone. I was just saying, like, to come from this path, which is, from doubtful mode to lantern mode. I think, I mean, to come to this path itself is a blessing, where you are looking for, I'll say, like, more
Yeah.
meaningful answers, or I'm
True.
just trying.
That is a blessing. See, that itself is a blessing for us to have a spiritual spark or some kind of a affinity to explore this, right? It's not everybody's cup of tea, because most of the people would be more than happy to live life the mundane way. But to have that spark itself is a huge blessing, I must say that. So in that sense, you are right. So let's hand it over to Cash for the surrender principles. I think it's going to be a fascinating discussion. I'm sure we can take the remaining hands after that, because more questions would come up, I'm sure, as part of this session. So over to you, Cash.
All right.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe
Yeah.
Radhe. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you once again for this blessed opportunity of bringing you some of Maharaji's teachings. Hang on, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. Something's happened. Okay, take two. All right, there we go. Okay, so today we'll begin with a taxi cab and a conversation that's happening in the cab between two people. So the driver of the taxi cab says, I love my job. I'm my own boss and no one tells me what to do. And his passenger says, that's great. Now turn right, then turn left. So you see what's happening here. He thinks he's his own boss and no one tells him what to do. But of course, he has a paying customer and she's going to tell him where to take her, right? So that brings us to today's topic, which is masterpieces or master's pieces. So we strut around like we're so great and we own our corner of the earth and we give ourselves so much credit for everything we do. So are we really masterpieces, or do we have a master and we're just merely pieces of that master? We'll see as we go along. Episode 5 of surrender. It's a conversation we've been having for a while. It's a huge topic. So let's get into it. Last week, we discussed what exactly should be surrendered. And we said God is looking for that very specific thing, and that was a combination of the mind and intellect. He won't stop at the mind, you have to give him your intellect too. And we said, what does it take to surrender? So this is where we created that self-effort framework, and we looked at all of the different processes we go through the day, and we saw, in each of those processes, what can we do to take ourselves that much closer to surrender? But we have other questions to answer too. What are the principles of surrender? How can we align our self-effort to these principles? And then how can we assess our progress on the surrender journey? Because it's a long way home, and we don't know where we are. But there's a yardstick and we can look at that. So that's going to be our area of focus today. So let's get into it. This is the verse which is found in the Puranas. It's also in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, which Sanatana Goswami has written. And this describes the 6 principles of surrender. So, anukulyasya sankalpaha, pratikulasya varjanam, rakshati iti vishvaso, goptrutva varnam tatha, atmanikshep karpanye, shadvida sharanagati. So we'll look at, we'll break down each of these words to know the context, and then we'll go a little bit more granular. So anukul is appropriate. Sankalp is resolution. This is our first principle of surrender. Second, pratikul is adverse. Varjanam is reject. That's our second principle. Third principle, rakshati vishvaso is protecting. Vishwas is belief or faith. Goptritva is master or guardian. Towards God. And Karpanye is humility. And Shadvida is the 6 principles. Sharanagati, of course, is surrender. So this is just, breaking down the words to help us grasp the context. And then let's list them out one by one. So anukulyasya sankalpa is to desire only in accordance with desire of God. Pratikulyasya varjanam is not to desire against the desire of God. So it's the flip side of the first one. Rakshasi iti vishvaso is to have firm faith that God is protecting us. Goptritva varnam is to maintain an attitude of gratitude toward God. Atmanikshep is to see everything we possess as belonging to God. And last but not least, Karpanye is to give up the pride of having surrendered. And after having listed all of these, our gurus tell us that if this feels like too much and there's just one of these you want to follow, then the first one, to desire only in accordance with the desire of God, in itself is all encompassing, because that's where you're leaving your own self behind and you're putting yourself at the mercy of your God and Guru. So we'll look at these in a little bit more detail, but before that, why don't we go back to the basics and talk about what is our soul duty? Because a refresher of where we come from, why we're trying to surrender, who we're trying to surrender to, is never a bad thing. So here are the questions, right? We want to surrender, but who are we really? Let's remind ourselves. And then what is our relationship with God? So here's God. This is his internal energy, the Swarup Shakti. And this is his external energy, Maya. I know this looks a little bit like a vinyl record. So we did talk about these energies yesterday. Yesterday we were talking about them in the context of knowledge, avidya and vidya, how Maya is ignorant, brings on ignorance, and then God's internal energy, the light of that can destroy that ignorance. So that was that this construct was in that context. Today we're looking at this construct in the context of our relationship with God. So other than these two energies, Maharaji will tell you time and time again in his lectures, three significant energies, this Swarup Shakti, Maya, and this is us, the Jeev Shakti, which is a marginal energy we said yesterday. So since eternity, we've been living on the edge, where the Tatastha Shakti, marginal because we're on the edge. And so we have a unique ability in that sense. We can interact both with Maya and with the divine energy if we so choose, and if God graces us with it. This is kind of like the sun and its sun rays. When we say we're tiny particles of God, we're not exactly tiny particles of his internal energy. We're tiny particles of a type of his energy which is limited, which is why we're not exactly like God. And of course, right now we're under this way of Maya, which Maharaji says is Sab Kashton ki Mataji, Maya. So of course, Maya serves us some laddus from time to time, and that is the pleasure we experience within that energy. And as Swamiji says, the other thing she serves up is Juta Chapal, right? So that's the suffering we undergo within Maya. So this is the world we're living in and the kind of relationship we have with the other Shaktis of God, right? So establishing some of that groundwork, God, center of everything, is the creator and upholder and the ultimate master and guardian of all creation, within which tiny, insignificant us we exist. We individual souls are fragments of that God and just his marginal energy, not even his best one. And as such, we are eternal servants of God. So that is really our relationship. So we think we're the boss, but really we're not. All this is to establish, this is the crux of all the conversation. This is the whole reason we have that relationship with God of servitude, and that is why we need to surrender to him in order to get his grace, in order to get rid of or get out of this ignorance of Maya. All right, so having established that, let's look at surrender principle 1. So anukulyasya sankalpaha, to desire only in accordance with the desire of God. So let's say when a company hires a person, right? He or she becomes an employee. At that point, what's that relationship like? The employee is expected to perform job duties per boss's requirements, right? And the employee is there to serve the needs of the company. So he has to desire what the company desires because of that relationship. So also with any young child living in your household, that child is dependent on you for his or her needs for their well-being, protection. So the child is expected to follow the set of rules that the parents set forth. So our children question us, why do you get to tell me what to do? Well, because I'm taking care of you. Similarly, since God is the energetic, which is, he's the sun, and we are fragments of his energy, which is, we're kind of his sun rays. Energy always has to serve the energetic. The energy exists because of the energetic. So constitutionally, we are God's Nityadas, which is eternal servants. And in that relationship, We have to desire what God desires if we want life to be smooth sailing. So that was surrender principle 1. Moving on, Pratikulasya Varjanam is not to desire against the desire of God. So if we don't align our desires with God, then we have to be willing to take on whatever outcomes occur out of us not accepting that desire alignment. Which means as we sow, so shall we reap. We cannot sow a bitter gourd seed and expect a tree with sweet mangoes growing on it. We'll get what we sow. So Maharaji says, whatever joys and sorrows come our way, they're the consequences of our decisions and karma, right? This is like, imagine if actors in a play, they're supposed to take direction from the directors. But if they went rogue and they did what they wanted to, where's the script and the play going to go, right? So we have to remember that God is our director and he knows the whole script. We don't even know a part of it. And while God is not paying us to serve him, we end up paying a heavy price if we don't. And we know what that is. Maya's Juta Chakra. So that was your principle 2. Moving on to surrender principle 3. Rakshaseti Vishwaso, to have firm faith that God is protecting us. So every creature on this planet, no matter how big or small, has been given that instinct and all that it needs to know to take care of itself. From the tiny ants to the mighty elephant, they know exactly how to take care of themselves. They know exactly how to take care of the young ones. Just like, children are protected by parents, we provide them with shelter and food and everything else, comforts, whether or not they're grateful for it. So our gurus tell us similarly, God protects us even when we're not surrendered. So even in this state, there's so many ways God is protecting us. They also tell us the more we start surrendering, the more we will feel tangibly this protection grow in more direct ways. So for example, the digestive fire in our belly, it can burn us. It's so acidic without God's protection. So that's just an example they give to show how God protects us even today. So that's your principle 3. Moving on to surrender principle 4, Goptritva Varna, which is to maintain an attitude of gratitude towards God. So back to our 3 energies, right? We have been eternally trapped in Maya, right? God is now giving us an opportunity to escape that because we don't necessarily have to be there just because we've always been there. We can use this opportunity to turn towards God and put our spiritual teachings into practice and turn the other way, escape Maya and go towards God and get his divine bliss. So what an opportunity this is, right? And so we should be grateful that we have this human body. We've been given a consciousness. We've been given a home, which is planet Earth, to live on. We've been given nourishment and sustenance in terms of food. And not just that, after all of those basic needs have been taken care of, we've been given spiritual, divine knowledge to leverage to start our surrender journey. And so we need to be grateful for each of those things, right? Without those things, we're forever going to be trapped in this web of ignorance. So that's your surrender principle 4. Moving on to principle 5, Atmanikshep is to see everything we possess as belonging to God. So when we go stay at a hotel, right? Do we start to believe that we own the place and now we can go back home with those things? Or no sane person will think that, just because they've gone to the hotel for a few days that they own it. We know that we're there just for a few days, we're a guest, and everything there belongs to the owner or the company. And that after a point, we go back home. So similarly, we are guests of God at Hotel Earthly Creation, and everything here belongs to him, and we best not forget it. So Swamiji says God smiles on 2 occasions. When a doctor says, I will save your life, he smiles and says, "You can only provide the treatment. Whether or not to cure is in my hands." And the other occasion he smiles is when siblings divide property and they say, "This land is mine and this is yours." God smiles and says, "You came into this world empty-handed and you're going from this world empty-handed. So nothing here belongs to you, not even your body. Your body is something I provided to you in your mother's womb." So that's your surrender principle 5. Moving on to surrender principle 6. Karpani is to give up the pride of having surrendered, humility. So Swamiji says, never harbor the thought, "I'm surrendered, I'm so great." Instead, we should think, if I was able to do something good, it was only because God inspired my intellect in the right direction. And left to myself, I would never have been able to do it. So I just thought I'd bring back the humility analogy from a few segments ago. So it makes me think of compost, because what can be more, humble than compost? It's a bunch of waste matter from your garden scraps and kitchen, but it ends up creating and enriching the soil, and it delivers really key nutrients. So in the same way, cultivating humbleness can address our inner soil in both senses of the word, meaning our inner environment, and helps us clean our soiled ego. And it's a key nutrient delivery of faith and surrender. So those were our 6 surrender principles. I thought we could just map them to our self-effort framework that we looked at last time. So first one was to align your desire with God's desire, right? So this whole box aligns with that, setting our intentions. We say, "Meri chahi mat karo," do what you want, because I'm just a murak again. And we literally said surrender principle 1. And if we don't know Guru's specific desire, we just follow his teachings. Second one was don't desire against. So when we get unfavorable results that was not in alignment with our desire, we accept the results with prasad buddhi. And this helps to minimize our ego as well, when we attribute those mistakes to our own limitations. Third one was protection. So practice devotion to develop faith, which leads to surrender. Fourth one was attitude of gratitude. So we said we've got to have that gratitude for all of the existing graces that we currently have. Fifth one was knowing that God is the one that illumines our mind and intellect. We don't possess any of that on our own. We wouldn't be capable without any of the things that he provided us. And last one was humility. So we attribute all good things to God and Guru's grace. So this is just a mapping of our self-effort to see where we put those principles into practice. Now, interesting observation, we don't have anything mapping to the decision-making where we exercise our free will, but that's really to say, if we start practicing more of these surrender principles in our other processes, they feed into our decision-making and they feed into our actions. So over time, we should see ourselves making better decisions and performing better actions that align more with our Guru's teachings and the divine knowledge that we're getting. So this was the mapping, but now we can also look at how well are we doing on our surrender journey. And that will only happen with some self-inquiry, with some introspection. Now that we know these principles, they can be our ideal, they can be our North Star, and then we can measure ourselves vis-a-vis those principles to see where we stand. So if we look at our first one, we can ask ourselves, is my desire self-serving, or is it in line with divine knowledge or Guru's teachings? We can ask ourselves, is the quality of my decision-making improving in terms of exercising free will in line with knowledge and teachings? So that will help us gauge whether how close are we in terms of desiring what our Guru and God desires. For the second one, we can ask these questions. Am I feeling agitated, or do I have a calm acceptance when I find that the results of my actions are not in line with my expectations? And then, do I find myself blaming God or others when things don't go my way? For the third one, where we try to develop more and more faith that God is protecting us. As my faith in God's protection grows, am I becoming more fearless and less anxious as I navigate daily life? Because then, you're doing your part, but you also have more and more belief that God is doing his part in protecting you. Is the quality of my decision making becoming less fear-based and more faith-based? So I'm not making decisions out of, but this may happen or that may happen. Attitude of gratitude, do I have feelings of entitlement for the graces and blessings I receive? Do I feel like I'm doing this much bhakti? Of course, I should be receiving the grace. Is gratitude to God becoming a habitual part of my sadhana? Is it becoming second nature? For everything that comes my way, whether it is good or bad, am I thanking God? To see everything we possess as belonging to God, is my vocabulary starting to change from mameti, which is mine, to namameti, which is not mine? And is my mindset towards life and creation changing from I'm the owner, I'm the enjoyer, to I'm a grateful servant of God? And lastly, do I feel a sense of doership, and am I taking self-credit for anything good that I accomplish? Or do I harbor judgmental or holier than thou attitudes towards others? So these are just some questions we can ask ourselves to gauge how we're doing in terms of these principles. All right, so applied knowledge is power. It's funny that Nitinji brought up Dayabak just a few minutes ago. This is a verse from Bhagavatam, which says, if you do these following three things, bhakti will become your inheritance. It belongs to God, but he will gladly bestow it on you. So first one, it says, stay optimistic. We keep asking ourselves this question, right? How much bhakti? Where am I on the journey? If you don't see things externally moving, remember the ice cube analogy too. It says, keep waiting for divine grace. Don't lose patience. If there's a delay, it is from our side. We should keep doing devotion with full faith that he will accept it one day. And then next one, stay calm. Whatever joys and sorrows come our way, we accept them without complaining because it's our karma. And Swamiji says, if there is reason to be disturbed, then you're not disturbed. If there's reason to be attached, you're not attached. If there's reason to be proud, but you're not proud. Those are the things that are showing you're making progress. And theoretical knowledge will transform into wisdom only when we come across these situations that test us. Third one, stay devotional with our body, our words, our mind. We keep offering our respects to God. So it says, God himself will bestow his divine property on our souls to make us qualified for surrender if we keep these three things in mind. So practice for this week, practice OCD. I don't mean be obsessive compulsive. I mean be optimistic, calm, and devotional. OCD. All right, I will leave you with this one last thought. How to bring suffering to an end? We can bring suffering to an end by surrendering. All right, this brings us to the end of this segment. As always, thank you for your patience and attention. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Outstanding, Cash. I was just wondering if there was ever an Olympics in creating framework and nuggets out of Bhagavad Gita, you'll win gold medal hands down. So that was one of the most holistic and tying all the concepts together for surrender holistic presentation I've seen on this topic of surrender, with some beautiful anecdotes and analogies that drive home the point so succinctly, clearly, and outstanding. I must say that. Let's hear from our participants. I don't think anybody should have a question. You just paste it on your wall. If there's a question, you can apply the yardstick, and it pretty much covers anything and everything that you may have in your head related to this topic. So I would say it's an outstanding job that you have done. So let's hear from our participants any questions that may come up after this one.
Yes,
A lot of hands are raised.
yeah. Radhe Radhe, Abhinavji, please go ahead.
Wait, Abhinav.
Radhe Radhe, Kashmiraji and Radhe Radhe. It was amazing session. I mean, today I couldn't stop myself, it was an amazing session. I mean, honestly, and the first couple of slides where you have shown, the God's grace and the Maya having that footprint, sun rays and all. That is like, it's giving clear picture where you are and what is that you need to do and what's all is surrounding you, and also, and it's lot of information. And I suggest Nitinji to give Kashmiri the whole 1 hour session instead of just giving 20-30 minutes, because it's too much for us to digest the information what she's sharing. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that is the OCD she has. She has to share everything, okay, in one session only. I've told her to break it apart because it's too much for the people to digest. We'll work out something, okay, around that part where you can break it out, because this session can also become a little more digestible, because it is gold dust. Each slide, each
right.
piece of information is gold dust, and there's an opportunity to break it more. We'll continue to work on that aspect. But yeah, I mean, this is one of the best presentations, I must say, that I've come across on this topic. So fantastic job. Let's hear from others as well. Let's take the more hands.
Yes, Radhe Radhe Sandhya ji, please go ahead.
Okay. Nitinji, though you said one should not have questions, but I think the presentation was so good that it made me think even deeply about topics that I felt I've understood. So that made me come up with some questions, which you allow, I would like to ask them.
Sure, go ahead.
So, first of all, with respect to the literal meaning of the fourth principle, I think the Sanskrit word, I was not able to draw the direct connection between the literal meaning and the way we look at the principle. If you want, I can. So it says, right, Goptrutve Varanam, which says, except master guardian.
So
Yeah.
With the firm faith that God is protecting us.
No, then after that, I think it says
so he's our master and guardian, right? So that's why we have an attitude of gratitude towards him.
He's our guardian, so towards your guardian, there's a de facto attitude of gratitude that it should breed. So some
that's
saint
how-
would have done a dissertation on that particular verse and came up with this distillation that this is the best way to articulate that particular thing. Who is that saint? I can find that name for you. So, but let's move forward with that. Let's move on.
Next question. Oh, can I ask more questions or?
Sure, one more question and then we can have a couple of hands. One more question.
Okay, so
give
one
opportunity to
question
everyone.
was around this beautiful diagram that you had made for Maya, Jeev and Brahm. So I was just wondering, in that graphic, we have Maya Dhin souls represented as the rays which are embedded in Maya in some sense. Where can we put the Maya teeth souls, like who are different from the core, the sun, who will still be different because they cannot be God, but they are also different from us, the Mayadeen souls. Do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah, Maya teeth, right? So
Yeah.
So basically the point that was trying to, as I understood, again, you can feel free to chime in, is that if you look at the sun, right, technically everything is sun. But at the same time, there's a difference. There's a difference between the sun rays. There's a difference between the surface of the sun and the core of the sun itself, right? So in that sense, who we are is not truly the direct parts of God, but parts of one of his Shaktis. That is the concept that was being illustrated for Jivatmas. So when it talks about Jeev, Brahm and Maya, three entities they're talking about. Right? We're not talking about the Mayatith souls here.
I'm agree we are not talking about, but I was just thinking if we
So
want to
if there were Mayatith souls, I think they would be probably somewhere residing inside the core of sun itself. Okay, I would say. Okay. That is where they would probably be residing in that case. But yeah, in this case, these three entities are introduced, and I think sun is a good analogy for that, right? The core of the sun surface of the sun, and the rays. It's same, it's all sun and yet different. So when Gyanis say, right, everything is yes, but at the same time it is different. But yeah, Mayatith souls would be somewhere who are Yoga Maya Yukt, And Yogmaya Yukt in this particular analogy can only be inside the core of the sun, right? So if at all anything. So
If
one
I can just ask, yeah, thanks. So regarding the protection principle, from our perspective, we think of Maya as our enemy, and hence, in some sense, we are being protected from the side effects of Maya that, we cannot deal with. But from God's perspective, everything is his energy, right? So what is he exactly like protecting us from?
Okay, so he's protecting, which one you're talking about? He's our
God is protector of everyone. That's the third principle, right?
Yes.
had firm faith that what he's protecting us from, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm saying from our perspective, yeah, we think of it as protecting us from, say, bad aspects of Maya that we think are bad for us. But from God's perspective, everything is his, right? I mean, everything is his energy.
Protecting means something done for, I mean, yeah, it's a good philosophical question. Maybe Cash, you want to take that. But protecting, as I understand it, is every act that God does is for our welfare only, right? So he's channelizing Maya or our Prarabdha also in a manner that it is benefiting for us. So he's our well-wisher. So every, like that bhajan is there, Teri kripa to kripa hai pyari, tera kop bhi kripa hai pyari. So in that sense, every act that God does is basically for our welfare only. So if he's doing anything for our welfare, he automatically is the de facto position of being our protector. He's protecting our best interests, not our puny interests, which we think are good for us. So in that sense, is how I interpret it. Anybody feel free? Good discussion today. I think lot
Yes.
to chew upon. So that's why I tell you, Cash, you need to split this whole thing. One slide itself can take for 30 minutes. So much content is packed in that. It's too much to assimilate. I don't know how you can think at the speed of light. You're not able to simulate all of it in one go. Okay, so this has to be broken into 2 or 3 sessions. Because for 1 hour you will say, then people will go into Stabdhovastha. There is so much of content there. But great, let's hear from some participants as
Yes.
well. Any questions or any reflections around it? Maybe we can have a bit
Right.
of additional discussion today. And then
Samiranji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Very beautiful presentation. I was just thinking about when we exercise, we go to the gym, we pump muscles and everything. We immediately, after a few months, we see changes. And in the path of bhakti, also, we need to, like, we ask questions that where am I? And that's where the last slide of applied knowledge to power helped me to like get those checkpoints in the path of bhakti. And thank you for that. And coming to the question part, I just wanted to know that how we can develop the Nishkam Prem Bhav in increasing our surrender, because one person, whatever for whatever reason, comes to bhakti, he might ask for material things, or to a higher level he can ask for the love of God. But even higher to that, if we can ask for nishkam prem, then how can we develop those things? Yeah.
okay, I can take that question real quick. It's a pretty nuanced question. How do we do the Nishkam thing? See, first of all, it's a journey. Our conditioned state is such that, and the fact that we have not attained that perfect bliss, every act that we will put in for is going to be for our self-seeking, for our self-interest, right? So to begin with, let's do, I mean, starting with seva, doing something which is more than your own self without getting paid for it. It's a good start. Even seva, there's a lot of sakamta, right? I want to do this, I want to do this, that I need to take that. You start becoming possessive and territorial about your seva and all. That is fine. I've spoken to Swamiji and he said, we can cut a bit of slack to people in this area. At least they're doing seva. Then you leave it to Guru. He's going to tackle your niche. If you are following their teachings, they are going to remove that layer of selfishness or sakamta layer by layer by layer. So delegate that job to Guru. Okay, you focus on doing your seva to the best of your ability and intentions. God and Guru will take care of that. Okay, they will first show you your frailties when it comes to your selfish attitude around so many things. Even though you may think you are the selfless person, first they'll start showing you, and then they'll start giving you assignments, and they'll start working and chiseling you and uproot that selfishness. It's a gradual process, but leave it to them. They know exactly how to work on you like a surgeon would do. Okay. All right, it's 10:05. Do we want to go a little bit more? Maybe we'll have to cut down on our segment, maybe 5 more minutes. We can go tomorrow, by the way. We're going to have a couple of things, a new segment which Samiran is going to take on introducing a saint that he's going to talk about. So we'll continue to mix our sessions and introduce new stuff. So Samiran is going to talk about that for, a little bit of couple of slides. And of course, we're going to have our quiz as well, but please fill out the feedback tracker for the feedback on today's session. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll share it with Cash as well. Anything in particular that you have to share, good things about the session. Let's take a few hands, Pallaviji, and then we can wrap.
Yes, sure. I have posted the link for the feedback tracker. Keshavji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, very, very good presentation. And it has inspired me to come back what I was doing 8-10 years ago. I'm working on some presentation on Bhagavad Gita on PowerPoint, for which I've been lazy, but now from tomorrow or day after I start. Rather tomorrow, not day after. Now coming back to two things. Number one, God is director. I cannot take it. God is not the director. He has made creation, and He has given us full freedom to choose. Do we want to surrender to God or live with Maya, Yog Maya? And the other when He protects, He's protector in two ways. He protects, जैसे है ना, like ब्रह्मा पैदा करते हैं, विष्णु पालन करते हैं. So He takes care of our breathing process. अहम वैष्णो भूत्वा प्राणपान दे महामाश्रिता प्राणपान समायुक्ता पचाम्यन्न चतुर्विधम. और जो हम खाना सिर्फ मुंह में डालते हैं, we put food and drinks in our mouth, that's it. After that, He is digesting it, sitting in the tummy, like I saw in the presentation, very good presentation. And then the other protection, what He does is to take us from this world to the Param Dham. When we surrender to Him, then He puts Yog Maya aside and He jumps in. Then He protects us. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you, Keshavji. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you for that. I think director is more about that. He has the broader picture about how things would unfold. He's not directing our action. But at the same time, it is more of an analogy in a sense that everything, when we are surrendered, it will follow the script that it's meant to be. That means perfectly aligning to His will. At this point, we have kind of gone rogue and doing what we want. So aligning to God's will means giving Him the privilege of being a director that He, that would fructify or complete the process of surrender as well. That's
I'll take 30 seconds, please. Like we go for swimming. Our swimming teacher teaches us, then helps us swim. Sometimes touches our body and protects us so that we don't fall.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's the swimmer has to swim the pool and the river, whatever.
Yes.
Likewise, our gurus guide us how to swim this ocean of death. Then we have to swim. Guru will not make us swim on our behalf. We have to swim under his guidance. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you, Keshavji. Last one we'll take, we are already over, maybe one, Kumarji, then we'll wrap up our session. Please do fill out the feedback tracker. Tanmay ji, you can put it if you have a question, because we are already over time. Maybe we can take one more hand real quick. Yes, Kumarji.
Yes, Kumarji, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Jai Shri Ram, Jai Hanuman. I think this is regarding one of the questions which came before Kashi's segment. Kashi, as usual, is brilliant, power-packed, information-packed session. I just took screenshots so that I can view it later on. But once again, great work, Kashi. I feel we are so lucky to be in this path. selected by God, probably due to some little good karma we have done in the past, right? So we need to have a great sense of gratitude for that. We don't realize that, but it's a great thing to be here, great thing to be part of this satsang, great thing to be part of learning Bhagavad Gita, that we need to realize and be very grateful. Also, it is better not to wear the spirituality on our sleeve or feel proud about it, because it can cause downfall, right? And to be kind to souls, especially to those who have not kind of identified this or been pulled or pushed into this one. So nothing to, not to put anyone down. At the same time, we don't need to feel jealous of anything at all. So it's all an individual path. Person next to you is not on the same, might be on the same path, but not in the same ladder. So don't need to compare ourselves. Just do our bit, do this one, and do bhakti and jnana, because I have found that if I do just one, I'm not getting the entire essence. Thank you. Jai Shri Ram.
Thank you, Kumarji. Jai Shri Ram. So I know, I think there are a few announcements. Swamiji's upcoming tours, they have been posted, or you can go to jqyog.org/events to check out his programs, upcoming programs starting from 4th May in Seattle, then Bay Area on 13th May, 20th May in Portland, Oregon. So lot to look forward to, especially in and around those areas. So do check it out. And thank you again for your enthusiastic participation, and stay blessed. Have a devotional, blessed rest of your day and evening. Do fill out the feedback tracker. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Our quiz masters, hopefully you're ready, right, for tomorrow. Even if you are not, okay, you better get ready. So I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Radhe Radhe. Good night, good day from my side.
Thank you, Nitinji. Thank you everyone for your participation. Stay blessed. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.